back with Brunch, a taste of Tobago. Now, I was just having such a delightful conversation this morning with my first guest. And the Tobago space is so small. We actually had a conversation and realized, oh my gosh, the families are kind of like intertwined. And like we know the parents and we have the lineage and everybody, is like on the same length and breadth of Tobago. And I'm going to introduce to you my first guest, Dr. Elton Bobb joins us this morning, former chief administrator out of the Tobago House of Assembly. But he's so much more than that. He's a pastor, he's a composer. I often think of him as a life coach because of the types of conversations that we have. And we're going to delve in just a bit this morning, as much as we can. So, Uncle Elton, good morning to you.
Good morning, JW.
Yes.
Hey, man,
Thank you
good morning.
so much.
It's a pleasure to be in your company, and certainly you reminisce so much about your father, who I grew up as a smaller brother to.
Yes.
I've been in Lansome, he been in Palthevere.
Mm-hmm.
A part of the culture, as you know, for a long time. A very, very,
Definitely.
very good teacher,
Yes.
musician. I certainly respected him a lot, and may his soul rest in peace.
Amen.
And
Thank
get the
you so
impression
much.
that you're following along his footsteps.
I am trying my best.
Yes.
I'm gonna go where it leads.
Yes, by God's grace.
By God's grace.
Yes.
So I'm not gonna take it and put it on the
Mhm.
back burner anymore.
Mhm.
I believe
Mhm.
that this is his
Mhm.
way of speaking through
Yes.
me.
Yes.
And so I'm
Yes.
just gonna do that,
Yes.
just that.
Yes. Yes.
So tell me. Oh my gosh, you've done so much. It's like over 41
Yes.
years
Yes.
of service.
Yes.
Where did it start for you?
I started. Let me start by telling you, I never passed common entrance,
Okay.
and I started by going to Hospitality Institute. I am a trained waiter barman. I started there.
Yeah.
And my first place of work was at Annesville Hotel. I started in Annesville Hotel in 1969. And from there, I joined the police service on the 15th of September, 1969. I served in the service at various levels until 1980. When I left, 1980, I left because I graduated with a degree in management studies from the University of the West Indies. I've always worked on study, never got any time off to do anything. I studied, and at the time, the police service convinced me that management was not one of the things that they needed at the time. And because some of my specialty was in agricultural economics, I had all my service transferred to the public service. So I never lost anything. I went across to the Ministry of Agriculture in Trinidad in 1980 and served there for several years.
Right.
Yes.
It's an amazing journey. I feel like you're taking me on a journey with you, because we were talking before you came and got mic'd, and we were alluding to the fact that so many of our sons and daughters are actually trailblazers, we're actually pioneers in whichever field. And recognizing is something that we still need. I mean, we're getting there. The narrative is changing, but we still need work
Yes.
in recognizing the persons that make us great, that put us on the world stage and on the map.
Yes.
Yeah. And so with education, I was looking at so many things that you have done. Economics keeps popping up.
Yes.
Tell us about LaSalle University, where you studied.
Yes, I did. As a matter of fact, I did that when online training and online school was just coming into vogue. I was right here in Tobago, right? I certainly went to United States for part of that training. And I did most of the core courses right here in Tobago, right? all the schooling that was required online. And it was at a time when we were looking at the economic development of Tobago. And I must say good morning to Dr. Vanis James, who is a friend of mine and who certainly is my mentor by way of agriculture, by way of economics. So
Economics,
at the
yes.
time, they were looking at the whole question at the CDP, the building that they were there. They were looking at that whole question of coming up with a comprehensive development plan. That's the first plan
Right.
for Tobago. And in it, I saw the opportunity to do some postgraduate certainly work by way of the thesis.
Right.
Looking at Northeast versus Southwest Tobago and the whole question of poverty and well-being and economic development. That was my dissertation
Okay.
at the PhD level.
Yeah. And you know, I actually love the fact that it's not just one layer with you.
No.
You're involved in so many
Yes.
other spheres.
Yes.
And your family, you know, we talked about that. Oh my gosh, Kenneth Bob, Erling Bob Lewis. Oh my gosh, Beulah Bob, you know, and it's like, and I saw your mom the other day. I was there with my daughter, and she just came out and started talking to us,
Yes.
and I'm saying, "Oh
Yes.
my
Yes.
gosh,
Yes.
I
Yes.
loved it so
Yeah,
much."
my mother, and good morning, Beryl Bob, my mother. She
Yeah.
has been the source of my inspiration for these 73 years. I'm saying
Yes.
that very, very passionately this morning. My mother has been my source of inspiration.
Yeah.
Yes, yes. And as you know, she's 97-year-old. Morning, mommy. And she still sits at that piano and
Yes,
plays
the
some music
piano.
and goes to
Yes.
church on a Saturday. She's still very, very active.
Yeah.
Amen. But she certainly brought us up in the fear and admonition of God. And as I was saying to you earlier, my parents had 8 children. I was the second of the 8. And I'm the only one who went to the Methodist religion. She took me when I was born into the Methodist church. So now I was saying to you earlier, my foundation is in Methodism.
Methodist, yes.
Right? I'm now a Methodist minister. African Methodist Episcopal is AME, which is Methodist. I am Methodist. And
Yeah.
I'm proud to say that.
And tell us just a bit about the history. You were giving
Yes.
me a brief history on the church, the beginnings.
Yes. It was in 1787 in the United States of America when the slaves were freed, right? Came out of bondage, and they loved the African way, the Methodist way of doing things.
Yes.
So they found themselves in a church in Philadelphia in 1787. And they were actually on their knees one Sunday morning when the pastors of the church, who did not have the same pigmentation as they had, told them, no, you can't worship in the front of the church this hour of the morning. They told that minister, or those ministers, wait until we finish prayer. We love this Methodism. We love your way of worship. We love how you do things. So give us a little chance to say something to our God. They said, no, you've got to leave now. So they left and they formed their own version of Methodism, right? And called themselves Methodist Church. But soon they had to argue legally not to worship
yes.
in the full name of the Methodist Church. So they actually call themselves African Methodist Episcopal. African because they came out of the slave experience. Methodist because they did and we still follow the Methodist tradition. Episcopal because we are governed by bishops.
Yes.
Okay? And certainly we came out of racism, but we practice no racism. Let me give an example.
Yes.
One of our bishops, early bishops, Paul Quinn, was born in Calcutta, India. And in the 1800s, he was one of the major pioneers for spreading the gospel of African Methodism throughout the United States of America.
Wow.
Amidst malaria, amidst all the other things that would have
all the
confronted him.
challenges.
So we practice no racism. And
Yeah.
we're saying whosoever will be a part of the Methodist fraternity. We are in India. We are all over Asia. We have been spreading far and wide we are part of the Methodist fraternity.
Yeah. And so your journey took you there as a pastor. So you're now a
Yes,
pastor.
I'm a pastor, and of course I am what do you call it, presiding elder.
Right.
We have 8 churches in Trinidad and Tobago and one in
Mm-hmm.
Grenada. I supervise those churches. In other words, I'm responsible for ensuring that the pastor do what they're supposed to do. So I travel
Definitely.
around a lot doing those things.
And like I said, there are so many layers. We may not have time to uncover
Yeah,
everything, but we
you
will
have to invite me
delve.
back.
Yeah, you have to come back in order for
I'll
us
be
to
happy
do
to. I don't
that.
have a problem with that at all. Yes.
Tell us about your stint as chief administrator
Okay.
in the THA.
Right. I came to Tobago in 1994, I think it was. And I came as the director of planning, Tobago House of Assembly. I've subsequently um, promoted to the position of administrator. I had a long 5 years and 2 months vacation from the Tobago House of Assembly for reasons which we don't have to discuss this morning.
Mm-hmm.
But having returned from that hiatus in the wilderness, I was appointed the chief administrator, Tobago House of Assembly. A very, very rewarding experience because, as you're well aware, my responsibility would be for all the other administrators and the divisions because the chief administrator is the accounting officer in the Tobago House of Assembly. I worked with, of course, with the Honorable Orville London over that period of time, and I retired in 2010 when I got to that retirement age. He asked me to return, and I did. And I came back to implement what was the comprehensive economic development plan for Tobago. So I did that for another 5 years, after which I'm fully retired from that aspect of public service life.
Right. And something that was really interesting, project cycle management.
Mm-hmm.
Just tell us a bit about that
Okay.
and what it
Okay.
entails.
Project cycle management involves several facets, from idea generation, if you will,
Mm-hmm.
and then of course you start to do your sketching for this particular project. Then you of course bring the project into a concise document with
Right.
what background, the project, the objectives, the implementation, targets and timeframes, the implementation schedule, etc. And after that, you must have post implementation evaluation. So you must look even after that project has been implemented to ensure that the modalities that you would have set out at the onset were properly met. And if not, what could you do better at the next stage or on another occasion when you are implementing
Yeah,
a
and
project?
the thing about it, implementation comes only after you have a proper plan.
Precisely.
Yeah, and
Precisely.
that's what I get. That's what I get from listening to you because there's certain words that govern the conversation. So it's economics,
Yes.
it's planning,
Yes.
And these are the things that we really wanted to delve into. Lecturing at the University of the West Indies.
Yes.
Oh my gosh.
Yes.
You did so many things.
I did.
Tell us
I
a
taught
bit
Caribbean
about
business.
that.
I taught Caribbean business and environment for about 10 or 12 years at the university. I did it both face to face and I did it through the online program. Caribbean business environment is a subject that certainly draws people into identifying opportunities for businesses in the Caribbean. So in addition to teaching them the basics of economics, you also point them to some of the opportunities which exist for getting into business rather than only looking to government to give them a job. I also taught international trade, for example, at the Arthur Lockjack School of Business. And that is certainly letting the postgraduates know about trade and all its variables, trade and blocks and international competitiveness and the whole question of money right? The Bretton Woods Convention and how fixed and floating exchange rates are derived and actualized. Those are some of the areas that I would have certainly taught, right? But what gives me a lot of pleasure in having taught those both courses, I had the opportunity to let both undergraduates and postgraduate students know that this is our region. This is our what you call the CARICOM and whatever other variant there is of the name. And there are opportunities here for investment. Let me give you one example. I hope I'm not going too fast.
Yeah, we'll take a break, but give me the idea first.
For example, I've been saying to the postgraduate students for a lot of years, there are opportunities coming up for joint venturing. Look at what is happening in Guyana now. The oil boom is certainly mushrooming in Guyana. And I said to them, by way of hypothetical example, I say, here we have come out of a lot of agriculture activities in Trinidad and Tobago. There are a lot of farmers in Trinidad whose tractors and whose machinery might be lying idle. There mightn't be the infrastructure things that would have been taking place in the past that is happening now. What better way is there to start to talk about an actualized joint venture with places like Guyana when we can provide the things that we have the competitive advantage in? They obviously have another component, and we come together both to develop ourselves, develop both countries, and by extension, the multiply effect would cause us to be able to develop the region.
Yes.
So I taught subjects from that perspective.
Developing the region. I love what you said there. We're going to take a break. Like I said, there's so much to talk about. We're going to take a break. We're going to be right back with more Brunch, a taste of Tobago. But before we do that, guys, there's a question that I want to ask you. Our trivia question for today. Now, there is a dance, a world-renowned dance, as a matter of fact, that was invented, created right here in Tobago. What is the name of that dance? We're gonna go for a break. This is a good one. You guys should get it. This is a good one. We're gonna be right back with more Brunch, a taste of Tobago. And we are back with Brunch, a taste of Tobago. Now, I had such a wonderful conversation before the break. And like I said, if I had to speak on everything that this gentleman has done, we would not leave here today. It's quite a lot and quite a bit to uncover. But we're going to delve in as much as we can. So, Dr. Bobb, welcome back.
Thank you.
And, administrator, you have done so many things.
Yes.
Administrator is one of those titles that you held. Health and Social Services.
Yes.
Tell us a bit about that.
And I'm certainly humbled to have been able to work at Health and Social Services. And I cannot, when you grow up in Tobago, you have to have manners. So this morning I want to say good morning to Mr. Ho-Choi Charles. Mr. Ho-Choi Charles.
Good morning to you, Mr. Charles.
Yes, good morning, Mr. Charles. And I'm saying that deliberately because Mr. Charles would have had the vision for that hospital up at Signal Hill. And being the administrator for Health and Social Services, one of the things that stood out at that time in the planning of, we spoke about project planning earlier.
Yes.
In the planning for that hospital was to make that hospital a teaching institution. So it was supposed to be a part of health tourism. So whereas we were probably offered local and international funding for smaller units, Mr. Charles stood out and said, no, this must be an institution like a university. So people should be able to come here and certainly be a part of a teaching hospital. I don't know where that is now because I knew up to about 5 or 6 years ago they were preparing other subsidiary locations so that when people come, they would have been able to have, accommodation and so on. But then, a lot of things would have changed over the time. COVID would have been one of those factors that inhibited that particular kind of division development. But I must say that Health and Social Services was indeed a blessing to me. I learned a lot at that institution. You know, it certainly has served me in very good stead.
Yes.
Right? Yes, it has.
And senior economist. I just love that title. Senior economist, Ministry of Housing and Settlements.
Yes.
Tell us a bit about that experience.
Yes, that was also a very rewarding experience. I went to that particular ministry at the time when there were a lot of projects relating to, of course, the expansion of housing in Trinidad. So I would be been a part of a lot of the discussions and witnessed some of the implementation of those projects. It was indeed rewarding. Similar to public and utilities, where I worked for a while, and I feel a sense of you know, I wouldn't say shame, but regret to look around now, because I don't know if you know this, Janelle. A lot of those pipes we have in the ground are over 100 years old, you know.
Oh, yes.
So those very pipes that we are getting water from, I saw some people exhibiting some of the water coming out of them for a while. The point I want to make is this: there was the plan, even at the time when I was at that ministry, to have a comprehensive change of those main extension, we call it, main replacement and extension program. I cannot tell you that I've seen that to fruition. I cannot tell you that I've seen much of that happen. Probably did, and I didn't see. But that is so very important. So when I listened to the minister, and I was saying, listen, we have a lot of housing development in the places, and we didn't envisage, and the capacity for the current capacity, if you wish, as we say in economics, for water is so very difficult, so we can't get water to everybody. It says a lot about our planning and implementation of some things. Not bashing the government, but we really need to have the forecasting and foresight to be able to cause these things to happen in tandem. So we cannot sit now in the height of the rainy season and say you could only get water 3 days a week. It should not happen. So those are some of the things, and certainly I was a part of the public utilities, as I said, and I look forward to water for all.
Yes.
Right?
Do you think that, because this is a question that I always ask, the policymakers and influencers, do they have, or are they having the relevant discussions with the persons in the field? Do you think that that is happening?
I think they do, but we always have to reflect on demand and supply and limitation. And as you know, the economies of the world are what? Up and down, right? Peaks and troughs.
Yes.
So sometimes the plans are well written, you know, and probably on some shelf for implementation. But what the economic fortunes change. And as those fortunes change, the whole question of implementation now becomes a problem. So that and the petrochem is the same story, you know. You have all the good ideas for your growth and development of these areas, but fortunes change.
Yes.
We're talking about global warming. We're talking about fossil fuels that are not as what? healthy as they used to be.
Yes.
Right? You're
Not
talking
as
about
healthy.
alternative ways of travel in terms of electrical vehicles and so on. And these things, of course, impact on your planning process. The extent to which you can certainly you may certainly adjust very quickly, sometimes can be a challenge. Okay, so those are some of the nuances, if you will.
Yeah. And I love the fact that you touched on it's more like pros and cons in every aspect of the conversation, because you're saying, okay, yes, we have this, yes, the conversation is moving, but let's try perhaps this approach instead of, you know, making it a point that, okay, this is not going well, we need to do this, we need to do that. You know, and there's a difference. The delivery I'm speaking on, and it makes such a difference when you are tactful in your delivery. And that's what I get from you. Yeah.
And of course, we in economics we call it exogenous factors. Factors that
exogenous.
are exogenous factors. Factors that are outside of our control. So you might have all the will in the world. You might have all the good intention, but somewhere between there, war starts last week. You know what I'm talking about. And those exogenous factors might well impact on your what? well planned and well
Yes.
intended projects.
Yes.
So these are some of the things that I'm sure you will want to take into consideration when planning is
Exactly.
taking place. The
Yeah.
exogenous. Now the people on the ground ain't see no exogenous factor in it. They are going to beat you because you promise, for example, hypothetically water for all. But on
Mm-hmm.
an exogenous factor has taken place and you're not able to deliver in 2020, whatever. They
Mm-hmm.
ain't saying that we're going to burn tires because you promised. But we must take into consideration, and a level of temperance must come in some instances because
Right.
some exogenous factors might impede the implementation process.
Yes, definitely. And well said.
Yeah.
You know, supervision of financial health.
Mhm.
What have you not done? That's what I'm alluding to,
Mhm.
because supervision of financial health with regards to procurement
Yes.
and staff development.
Yes.
Just tell us a bit about
Yes.
that.
Well, as you know, the procurement legislation probably about 2 years ago has come into vogue in one of its iterations. And it really speaks to accounting with efficiency and effectiveness for government resources. So, in other words, a public officer cannot take the lease or license to do what he wants, how he wants, when he wants
Hmm.
with the government resources. The whole question of tendering and procurement procedures, the whole question of proper selecting of a tender package, the
Right.
whole question of having all the supporting data to justify why you would have gone that route, if you
Mm-hmm.
understand what I'm saying. All those are very critical to certainly spending money and accounting for money. And that is
Yes.
that is what, of course, the public service and the public servant. Always remember, and politicians will tell you that particularly when they get in trouble. Politicians don't spend money.
Mm-hmm.
Public servants are
Public
responsible to
servants.
account for the public purse. So
Yes.
at every instant, we must, as servants of the government, apply all the rules and regulations. Sometimes it rubs the politician wrong. But
Mm-hmm.
we must adhere to those rules and regulations because at the end of the day, we are the ones who are called to account for government funds.
And you said it so well.
Yes.
I have nothing else to say
Yeah.
because you said it so well.
Yes.
Before we wrap,
Yes.
what would you like to say to the viewers? If you had to leave a positive message or word, what would you say to them today?
I would certainly want to say, and I want to say good morning to the current chief secretary, a young, enthusiastic gentleman.
Mm-hmm.
I want to say good morning to him. I've met him before. I am not looking for a job, but I want politicians to understand there are still fine minds out there who you can tap on.
Agreed.
I want to say that.
Mm-hmm.
There are experiences out there that you want to tap on. Let me tell you something, Janelle. I have worked from Matlot to Cedrus in this country
Yes.
as an agriculture economist and other things. I've worked all Matlot. I just said it. Matlot to
Yes.
Cedrus. Name it. I've been there.
Traversed the country.
Rehabilitation of the state land development projects, I was there. Rehabilitation of roads under the IDP program, I was there.
Yes.
Trying to rehabilitate rice lands in Plumiton, I was there. I'm saying all that to say that there is a resource here in the cranium that don't go with age. You only lose things when you use it.
Yes.
So I will always say I'm not here, and I will do it pro bono. If you ask my advice on things, because I've always said, Chanel, I'm probably taking more time than Tobago has one of the best flavored cocoa in the world. We know that.
Yes.
What is happening to Tobago plantations? I am ashamed. I have about 15 acres in land. I wish I can be able to look and speak to the government and say, let's get together to rehabilitate that.
Definitely.
Because I always say, listen, we can use CPEP and some of those other institutions to help us to start to rehabilitate the agriculture sector. So I really want to say good morning to the government of Tobago and, of course, the Chief Secretary, the Secretary for Agriculture, and all the others. And if you need my input at any stage of your development planning process, I will be ready and willing to help.
Definitely, and well said.
Thank you.
We just want to thank you so much
Yes.
for finally,
Yes.
we were asking
Yes.
for you
Yes.
for a while,
Yes. Yes.
finally sitting with me on the
Yes.
brunch set.
Yes.
I absolutely enjoyed our conversation. I feel that we still have so much more to talk about. So
Yes.
you're gonna
If
have
you
to
invite me
come
back,
back.
if you invite me back, I'll come.
Yeah, you
I'll
have
come.
to come back and really let's
Yes.
delve in.
Yes.
Yeah.
Yes.
So thank you again.
Man.
And from our family to yours, blessings.
God bless your cause.
Blessings.
Bless
Yes,
you.
cousin.
Bless you.
We're gonna take a break, guys. We're gonna be right
Amen.
back with more
Amen.
brunch at Taste of Tobago.
Amen.